the challenge going for you? I think we haven't recorded for a couple of days. I still have to upload the last episode.
No, it's going well. I just start to see the impact in a lot of other areas.
Nice. In what
You know
way?
what I mean? Like, well, just like, I think there's something to taking the time to think through this stuff that I don't even know how to explain it out, like outside of like, it has a leveling effect where, are we recording?
Yeah.
Have we been recording?
Yeah.
Well, that's what goes on with my kids.
Well,
Um,
I can edit. I can
oh
edit
yeah.
that first part
I was like, good to know. Good to know. It has like a leveling effect where like, how do I explain it? I think there's like some just clarity, like mental clarity. So conversations become easier, thinking through things become a little bit easier. I guess you kind of clear out the clutter, right? So you clear out the clutter and it just makes a lot of other things more efficient. And I mean, like, even like conversations with kids, your kids inevitably are going to do something to piss you off. They just do. That's what kids do. They're supposed to do that, right? They test their boundaries. And then like being able to have the mental space to deal with that in a way where like you walk away and you're like, I actually dealt with that one pretty well. I mean, and that's one of the things as a parent, you're always evaluating yourself. And sometimes you deal with things and you walk away and you're like, could have done that one way better. But I think when you're doing this type of activity and challenge and you're digging into this stuff, but then also clearing it out of your head, writing it down, you level, you create space. And then that space can be occupied by things that are happening now.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of challenge allows some amount of presence because of that. At least that's what I've been noticing. And,
Totally.
just better, more productive conversations over things with people. And I think that's big, like definitely something I want to continue to do, after the challenges, continue, I'm going to be repetitive here, but continue to challenge myself with these types of questions, really to just think, kind of put things together, and then kind of clear it out, put it on paper. And I really feel like that just allows you to pay closer attention to what's in front of you.
Totally. I mean, I feel like I've had a very similar experience. So much of my fear and anxiety is removed from my everyday life because there is that space for me to be present. And I
Yeah, it's
find myself doing
interesting.
little things. Yeah, I find myself doing little things to remain present. So when I go into fear or anxiety now, I'll be like, this is going to sound ridiculous and I might sound a little bit crazy, but I will literally list things that I can see in this moment. So I'll be like, yellow lounger, boxing bag, tree. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, but that I have this awareness now instead of spiraling to a place that would take me into fear and anxiety and just like craziness. I have the ability I have a space between awareness and reaction that I can choose how to respond.
Yeah,
And,
no, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. And so I think, it's definitely showing in the way that I show up with my kids.
Mm. That's a big one, right?
Yeah. But you know what the thing is for me right now? I'm definitely in a space, and this challenge has allowed this to happen, where I am 100% like falling in love with who I am as a person.
That's
Flawed,
great.
quirky, idiosyncrasies, like every single thing. I am taking the time to really explore and accept that, because this awareness has been so enlightening about, here's the biggest thing that I've learned, my fucking awful sense of self-worth. Literally
Yeah. That's
awful.
popped up quite a bit. Yeah.
Sorry.
I've heard you say that quite a bit over the last, over this challenge, over the last few weeks. And yeah, it's interesting.
And how it affects like every area of my life. My finances, and I shared this with you, but during this challenge, I was in quite a bit of debt, right? I didn't get my tax return last year. Like there was a lot of stuff going on. And during this challenge, I'm really starting to work. And I'm not saying this challenge is going to eradicate debt for everyone, but during this challenge, I'm really sitting in myself and looking at my self-worth and how I show up. Like stuff happened and came into my life that I was able to take care of all of that.
What do you think that is? Like, where do you think that, the correlation to that is? Is it?
So it's this for me, and I don't know what it's like for anybody else, but this like very low sense of self-worth where I start externalizing stuff. And it always comes back to my house for some reason. Like it's almost like my house is a representation of myself.
I think I think for a lot of people, you could make that case. If you look at their living environments, it's a representation of what's going on within them, right? So is it overly clean and put together? Is it overly chaotic and messy? Is it the right amount of put together and a little bit of chaos, like it's lived in and it's lived in well and it's lived in now. I think there's a lot you could tell.
Totally. And so I've kind of like gone through every room in my house, like pulling shit out, like getting rid of stuff and finding stuff that I didn't realize I even had that's so beautiful and displaying those things prominently. And, just like opening doors between rooms and just looking at my property. And I'm like, I have the most beautiful house. Like I really have an insanely beautiful house. If I went back 10 years and I was like, what? If I could imagine a dream space and a dream house to live in, what would it look like? This would be beyond my wildest expectations.
Yeah.
And here I am. And I before this challenge, and I was going through life thinking, oh God, the garden, it needs so much work. And I can't even look in that room because the paint color and you know what I mean? Like just focusing on this negativity and not good enough. Those core beliefs that not good enough, right? That not good enough, that feeds my self-esteem constantly coming up for me over and over again in the way that I view everything in my life. Yeah. And so during the challenge, taking that back and being like, actually, wow, this room is fucking gorgeous. What can I do to use what I have to make it beautiful? And now I walk around my house in awe and wonder. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, wow. Like I am so lucky. And so that's how I'm feeling about myself as well. And
I was going to say,
right? Feeling like that about myself and having not having this need. And this is the weirdest thing to me, for this external affirmation, especially for men. And I'm being very open right now, is mind blowing. I have been searching for a dad to come and fix everything, to come and fix my financial situation, come fix everything. I have not for one moment decided that I was going to take control of my own life and own it as I am. And this is what's happened in this challenge.
Yeah. I mean, all super interesting. And I think if I mean, if anyone's been listening to these episodes, you can you can definitely hear that come out from, episode 1 to, what are we on, 5? This fifth one? Fifth or
I
sixth?
don't know. I think so. Yeah. It's been
Yeah,
so fun.
like that has played out for sure. And I think it's funny you said, I love perspective sometimes, right? And like, it's funny you said 10 years ago where you wouldn't have even thought you would be in this kind of position or this house and this property, and like, it's surpassed your own expectations, and you don't give yourself credit for that, right? So funny that yesterday I brought my youngest daughter to softball practice, and then had to go drop her off at my oldest daughter's soccer practice where my ex-wife is. And we're driving there, and like, we live in Carlsbad, and it kind of runs along the shoreline, right? Like you can always see the water. And we go over this hill, and she was like, I don't remember what we were talking about. We were talking about summer plans and like, you want to camp out? Like, let's spend some beach time, all these different things. And we go over this hill, and she was like, and look at that beach. Isn't it beautiful? Look at that site right there. And she's 7. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, look at what you get to look at every single day. And, appreciate that. Like, and it made me think too. I mean, I grew up in Tucson and then Cobb County, Georgia, which was great, but never did I think that I would be living in some coastal city of Southern California. And it goes back to things I've learned about myself and these challenges like you just talked about. But it's like, this idea of it's never enough. Like, gotta keep doing things to get some type of external validation from people other than myself. And no, like, look at what, for me, it's like, look at what you have. Like, you've done a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And it's time to, I don't know, show some self-appreciation.
Yes, and it's time to fully own our space.
Yeah, and even for me, like, what this challenge has also done is, because the word that's popped up often for me is stability. And it's really...
Yes, you go on about that all the time.
And I have for a long time in my life, but it's really made me think about, like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Because nothing can be perfectly stable. That would be a shitty life, right? Like, what, you just don't experience anything new because it might knock off your stability? Like, no, experiences and change, though maybe acutely painful, can bring a lot of growth and good things, right? So you can't have 100% stability. So then, like, what does that mean to me? Like, it's not this idea that everything is protected in this like magic little bubble, because that's sterile. That's not fun. Like, that's not a cool life. That's not the life I want to live. That's like goes against this other value of meaningful experiences, because meaningful experiences are kind of getting out of that bubble and putting yourself out there, right? Kind of losing a little bit of that like physical stability. So it's really made me think, like, and I guess it kind of attaches itself to my thoughts on being resilient versus being happy. But stability to me is having the tools to accept change. And
I love
you know what I mean? Like, accept change and get out there and get these experiences, but don't let it rock you, like,
because
be built like
yours as well, right?
What's that? Yeah, exactly. Meaningful experiences, adventure. And like, well, that's not stable. Like, there's nothing stable about going and finding adventure. In fact, it shouldn't be, because adventure is something that's supposed to be like a little bit of a risk, So essentially stability is having the right tools to properly deal with risk. Because if you don't take risks, like, then what, you know what I mean? Like, I have become very risk adverse, and it's due to growing up in a family that wasn't risk adverse and seeing it all come crashing down over and over again, to the point of somebody taking their own lives, right? Like, I've seen like what risk can, like being okay with risk can do, but you can't swing the pendulum so far in the other direction that now you're just unwilling to take risks, and you live this life of like this sterile life, So it's really made me think a lot about stability, like, outside of financial, but even with like financial, well, what does that mean? Like, if you don't define that, then you're always chasing some kind of, what's that?
It's all connected. Sorry.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And it's like, well, you need to be financially stable enough to be able to take risks, because, what tends to happen, I mean, yes, there are some people that can get to a pretty amazing point in their life financially without any risk, but usually some level of risk is involved, but build yourself up properly, whether it be mentally, physically, financially, or, to be able to take risk and weather it.
Yeah. It's that cycle.
Yeah. So anyway.
I love that. I love how we have been able to, I think it was such a powerful exercise at the beginning that we did on establishing our values. And then coming to this realization that we didn't really understand what they meant to us. And through doing this challenge and exploring it, like, I've become really firm on passion and what that means, and abundance and what that means. And one of the things that's been helping me so much, and we are going to be doing this later in this challenge, is I write my mission statement to myself every single morning.
Yeah, that's great.
And you know what the thing is like, it's not me saying these are my goals, like I want to make $1 million by the end of the year. It's not those goals that I thought ignited passion in me at all. It's the most, it started with that question, what does life want from me? And what life wants from me, I think, and I believe, and I feel passionately, is it wants me to help other people feel and experience and be truly like in themselves. So us being open and authentic allows other people to do the same, right? And I'm not saying like we're like special in any specific way. Like, anybody has the ability to do this, but really that's what drives me. And if I can help one person access those feelings of love and passion and purpose and excitement, then that's like so freaking well done. And I am truly grateful and happy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right?
I think it's interesting. One of the things that you said that's interesting is you listed out a couple of the values that you had listed early in this exercise, but you said what that means to you, right? So I was having a discussion about values recently, and specifically my values, but how I defined them and what they meant to me were way different than maybe how other people would see them, right? So I started to think like, okay, meaningful experiences, and what is lumped into that for me is also relationships, because for me, I find the most meaningful experiences shared with other people. And again, it could be a significant other, it could be really close friends, it could be family members, kids. But it also means in order to have these meaningful experiences, you need to work on developing the right relationships, right? And so like that kind of lumps together. And there was another one that was really interesting too. I think it had a lot to do with family. And I was thinking through family. And like family for me has also provided a opportunity to understand forgiveness and forgiveness for other people, and then forgiveness for myself, because I have not been a complete angel in my family as well, right? I've done some really shitty things to people that I love. So like I list family out on there, and like family could mean a million things, but one of the main things that it has taught me is how to forgive, other people, but also how to forgive myself. So it's really interesting how you say, like, you listed abundance and you listed another one and you said, and what that means to me. And it's like, we can have the same values, but what those values mean to us could be completely different. And like,
And that's
so it's a great exercise, because I listed these out, but through these few weeks, I really learned why they were so important to me and what they've taught me, versus just this idea of family or meaningful experiences, right? Or stability. What does that actually mean to me? And what has that taught me? And but I wouldn't have known. It's interesting. It's cool.
It's amazing, and it's how our values then shape our beliefs, and how we can redefine our beliefs by looking at our values again. And look what shifted and changed for us when we were willing to go into this exercise and be like, I'm just going to take a little microscope. I am going to set my life on fire, and we did.
Yeah,
we did, and so much greatness really came from it. So I mean, it's exciting. It really is.
Yeah.
I love it. I think one of the biggest things also that's come up for me is this passion. Like, what am I meant to do here? Like, what is my purpose? It's been a question that I've before. It's been something that I have struggled with my whole life. Like, what is the point of me being alive? What is the point of me being on earth? What is the point of me? And it's gotten a lot better over the years, but how do I connect with my passion? Because being connected to my passion makes me feel alive. And I want to feel, I want to experience life. And I've come to realize I don't just want to be happy or excited or like all these good things, because the opposite, as we've spoken about before, allows us to experience, both ends of the spectrum. So that's interesting. And when I look at passion and in an effort to not be so politically correct in what I put down, I was like, okay, what does drive me to be successful? And I'm going to tell you really honestly.
Uh-oh.
This is why I want to be successful.
Oh no.
I want to be successful so that everyone who has ever disregarded, or rejected me can feel huge amounts of loss, pain, and regret. I want them to be miserable. I want them to feel.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. Something very positive with feel, but started off pretty harsh. But hey.
Some days that is what drives me.
No, but of course, I mean, like, who doesn't want that to some extent, right? Like, hey.
It comes back to my thing about people. I want people to feel the experience.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I think anybody can relate to that, right? Like, you just had the courage to write it down. But who doesn't want people that have rejected them to be like, oh, I was wrong? You know what I mean? Of course, everybody wants that. Nobody wants the people who rejected them to end up saying, well, I was right about that person. Like, you want them to, especially if they rejected you for something that's like was actually wrong. Like, and anyways, yeah, that's a very courageous thing to say on video, because I think a lot of people probably feel something similar but will not say it.
But wait, okay, here's taking it a step further though, because actually when I write that, I have to turn that mirror on myself, because the person who has disregarded, disrespected, and discarded and rejected me most is me.
It's yourself. Yeah.
And
You're proving yourself wrong, making yourself feel. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like, so I wonder, we had one of the days, let me see what day it is really quick to ask this question. And we kind of jump around now, and that's okay. Okay, it was day 10, right? Yeah. Day 10 asks about specific points in your life where you kind of felt like things were, for a lack of a better way to describe it, on track, right? Like felt alive and felt like you're being yourself, and there's some level of fulfillment in this experience and that kind of stuff, right? So, and you said, and the reason why I'm asking this is because I'm trying to put this together for myself. So you had said that what the world wants out of you is kind of also what your passion is, and that is to help others and to help them feel. So my question is, on day 10, did those experiences, or the experience, I don't know how many you have, that you listed out, is that what you were doing during those experiences?
No, not at all. No,
Okay.
no. And this came after that. It was a couple of days ago. I was fucking pissed off when I wrote that. But it made me laugh because I was like...
That's pretty funny. No, but I like how you turned it around, because it's like, well, who's rejected you the most? Yourself. Like, that's interesting.
Yes, absolutely. That's true. So anything now that happens, I'm like, geez, what is this teaching me about myself? Not in a selfish, self-centered way, but just more of a self-awareness. But for that day, I had put horse riding. The union of self with another being in complete presence, devoid of fear, thought, shame, guilt, projection. The purity of being in that exact moment as we both are, centered in our hearts, flying with our souls entwined. And obviously, that's what I wrote.
But I think that does go hand in hand with how you think you should show up in the world.
Yeah.
That is feeling. That is,
yeah.
I mean, that's somewhat the experience you want to provide other people. So no, I think so. That's what I was trying to get at, is like,
so it's the same.
It is, right? So, okay, finish up, because it's really interesting, because it really helps me out with some things.
Wait. I mean, I kind of have. I'm totally in my body, out of my head, leading with my heart, connected to something so much greater than myself.
Yeah. So opening up and feeling, I think that's okay. So when I look at mine, so it's like, well, who do I like? How do I want to show up in the world and all this stuff? And I have a hard time with that. And a lot of times I'm like, well, I want to be in a position where I'm strong enough, and I don't necessarily mean physically strong,
because you are
not
physically,
but strong enough to help other people, right? But I think at the same time, like, I really enjoy succeeding with others, not just on my own. So creating those experiences. So then I started to think through, there were 3 points that really, like, I felt like, man, things were just humming along and they were great. And there were some points in the military where I was in some training with groups of people that, we just there was a sense of teamwork. There was a sense of family, full trust in each other. There was a sense of progress and challenge and something that was meaningful in what we were doing, right? And I loved it. There were times in the military I was like, I could do this forever.
Aww.
Like, it was amazing. Then you fast forward a few years, when competing in CrossFit, believe it or not, but on the teams, like, individual was great. It was a cool experience, but it wasn't my favorite. And it wasn't something where I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can't wait to do this again. In fact, like, it became stressful, and like, you'd get there and it felt very lonely competing on your own. Like, I didn't necessarily enjoy it at all. Like, I liked the process, but it wasn't great. But when I competed on a team, there was not, those years competing on the team with CrossFit Atlanta were some of the best years of my life. And we set up an entire year based off of building up a team, training together, you know, and it was just, everything was built on getting better and improving for yourself, improving for your team, having these points where you would actually put it all together and compete against other people and see how you stood, see how it all worked out, you know, and we did really well. And it was like, there is something about like making yourself better so that your team could lean on you for support, and you can support them, and then vice versa, right? You can lean on them and they could support you. And there was a shared suffering in both of those examples that like you just put in a lot of work and suffering together, but then the outcome was awesome. I mean, we got to share the success as a team, as a group, and it was great. And then the other one was my first master's program, which was completely different because there wasn't anything physical about it.
Yeah.
But I was in a small group of people that were research assistants, and we were in that lab 5 days a week, morning to evening, all damn day long, and taking classes. And we kept that lab going, you know, and it was like, it was tough. It was hard. And we worked our asses off, helping out with research, keeping the lab, keeping everything like calibrated and keeping it moving correctly and keeping it clean and, you know, and then studying to, you know, compete to see who can have the best grades in class, you know. And there was this sense of group and cohesion and competitive, and we'd help each other out as much as we could. And I started to think, like, for me, it's all about being a part of a team. Like, I love building teams. Like, I love experiences where I get to experience pain, but also enjoyment and fulfillment and all those things with other people.
So how can you recreate that in your life now if it is something that you're missing?
Well, you know, you have to find unique ways, I think. I mean, I think I've started to, and I have other people around me that enjoy doing similar things. So you have to be a little bit more strategic with it. I mean, I got some friends that try to meet up at least once a year and take on some stupid challenge, and it sucks and it hurts and there's suffering, but we always finish and it feels great, you know. And you know, I think with work, you know, I tend to find that with work, when I feel like people are doing things that only tend to help themselves, it crushes me. I hate it. I get really down about it. And it's finding ways to build a team and share the workload and also share the victories that we have. And then it's decisions, you know, and I think that's decisions with like, hey, if I'm doing something in my life where it doesn't fall, like this opportunity to create some great experiences and some work as a team and have some opportunity to lead and also be led, then maybe if that's not the case and I can't get that of what I'm currently doing, then maybe it's not what I should be doing. It's being honest with myself with those things, because what I find is when that stuff's not happening is when I'm the most miserable. When I don't have challenges, when I don't have challenges that I can work on with other people. Like, you know, during COVID, I did a lot of challenges, but they're all by myself. But they necessarily weren't, because like some of the ones that I got into, like I did a 50K on a assault runner. And I did it because I was challenged by somebody and they were going to do it too. And I was like, there was some level of shared misery and experience, but also victory in this thing, right? So I did it. And I find like if I can be challenged by other people and be a part of it, like, you know, like this stuff with
Yeah.
Tom McCoy and Jen, like a 5K a day or a 10K on a bike, you know, like doing that, finding ways to fit in a 5K or a 10K every single day, but sharing that with other people and holding each other accountable. And then, you know, kind of highlighting or sharing the success of other people as well. You know, they share mine, I share theirs, those types of things. Like those are things that like I love doing. And if somebody asks me to do them, I'll do it. I'm like, I am in, I love this. Let's do it.
Okay, I got a challenge for you.
Okay, what do we got?
Okay, I love what you're saying. I love the way how passionate you speak about this kind of stuff. I'm going to challenge you to take it into a space that's not that comfortable for you.
Okay.
So, not exercise. How
Yeah.
can you take this method and mindset and passion and turn this business into multi-million dollar business?
And a shared success.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's the, yeah. You know, it's interesting. It would just be like, okay, we would be kind of dissecting the behaviors, you know, take out like exercise, right? But what behaviors go into holding each other accountable and setting goals and working towards them, and then finding metrics to show progress, and then eventually putting it all out there for people to see. You know, like that's what competition is to some extent, and being, you know, to some, you know, being graded or, yeah, no, I think it just takes a little, what would you call it? Not introspection, but just like a little digging into the actual underlying behaviors of creating a team in something like a competitive physical environment, and extracting that, but then applying it to something else. I can do that.
Yeah, good. I'm excited. What's the date
What's the date that I do that?
for the challenge?
I don't know.
Well, we can discuss it offline. Okay, getting back to the actual challenge, so within living authentic.
Well, that was day 10. Like, I think we knocked out day 10. I mean, to some extent.
Good. So are you done with day 10?
Yeah. You know, I think those were the three main things. And what did I write? So I think, you know, so looking back, every one of those experiences demanded that I strive to be better, challenged me to push beyond what I was expected to see and measure, and actually measure real progress. Obstacles that were there were obstacles that were difficult to overcome, but joy in overcoming these challenges with the group made it all worth it, right? So, and then I found similar ways, but mostly with physical challenges, to test myself, but alongside other people, and create teams for sure. But yeah.
Did you do day 11 on boundaries?
I did. You know, I get stuck on words and things, but I did it. And all right. So, what are my non-negotiables in life? What are the things I cannot compromise on, no matter what? And I think they all kind of come down to. I mean, we've become very repetitive at this, but for a reason. I think it comes down to what things kind of violate my values.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and the words aren't exactly the same, but in some sense, there's some violation to one of my values. Like the things that when I really thought about, like what anything that's like what am I not willing to compromise on? Well, that's like relationships, friends, family, team, that kind of stuff. My own health, personal growth. And, I always put that, that's always like on the forefront for me. I always try, let's not say always, but I will try to put my health, whether it's nutrition or stress management or sleep or obviously fitness, as a priority, and I'll take the time. And sometimes that means that I have to work late or, but it doesn't matter. I do it anyways. I'm just one of those things. Stability, but then like I need to dig into that one more, but I think really it's like, it's dealing with people that provide a high level of uncertainty. And like those are relationships that I just don't need, where you're not quite sure what to expect from this person. And I'll tell you no, I'm not going to get into this. I'm not on a podcast. They have some family stuff, but I'm like, it's a little too, yeah. It's interesting though, because I say that and yet, anyways, we'll move on. I think like communication's a big one. Like I don't like, one of the things it's really hard for me to move forward with is lack of communication. And it kind of goes hand in hand with this idea of dealing with people with high levels of uncertainty, because if you can't communicate, then you don't know what the hell is going on. And that drives me nuts. And then like this idea of not seeking adventure is, I don't know how that goes again. Like, I guess it's a non-negotiable, meaning like that I have to have that as part of my life. Some type of challenge or adventure needs to be there. Like, and it doesn't matter. I will find a way to get it, whether it's running 50K on a stupid assault runner, which actually I love the assault runner, but running a 50K is stupid on it. It's just dumb. Or I did a 50 miler. Well, like I will find a way. We'll hike up Whitney, or, like it has to happen. Those types of things have to happen. We'll find a way to do them one way or another. Yeah. Those are my, and there's probably more, it's like, but I just try to list like with these, whether I'm right or wrong and how I'm understanding the question, I just try to list the first few things that like pop up very strongly in my mind. And those are the ones that like hit hard.
Yeah, I think with all of these exercises, I mean, we cover a ton of ground. I mean, we're on day 11, and I mean, just discussing day 11, we're a little bit further on, like in our online, right? But
yeah,
I think that there is an opportunity to go deeper, but I think the advice that you've given of just putting down whatever comes into your mind first is good enough for this challenge.
Yeah, I think so. Because, when I looked at these, then I started to say, okay, well, why do these come up so fast? And then I look at them like, well, the reason why they came up so fast is in somewhere or another, they're a violation to what I've said is the 5 things that are really important in my life, those 5 values that are really important in my life. And these violate those in one way or another. And like, so then you list the next thing is like, where do I draw the line when it comes to time, energy, and resources? What are the things that drain me, and how can I protect myself from them? Well, I think the things that drain me are like what I said, is the people who provide high levels of uncertainty, lack of communication, self-centeredness, not respecting my own time and boundaries, lack of teamwork, lack of motivation, unwillingness to listen and learn, unwillingness to accept different opinions and ideas. And all those are like, well, it's like relationships and meaningful experiences and personal growth and challenges and those types of things. Like it's those are behaviors that prevent those things, right? Like that's what it is. So, and then it's like, well, how do you protect yourself from it? And Well, I think you have to. I think I don't know that you can fully protect yourself from it. Let's take work as an example. I mean, you can. I mean, you can always find new jobs and new employment and really find the one that fits. But at some point, you're going to have to sustain an employment long enough to do that. That you have to sustain a job that maybe is taking time, energy, and resources away from you, in a bad way. And I think with that one, it's like, you can't completely protect yourself from it, but you can make it a point to fulfill your obligation, your agreement to that job, and end it there. Right? Like, you don't have to do more and go out of your way and do all these things. And I think it's okay to just be like, well, this is what's expected of me. And this is what we agreed upon. And this is what I'll provide, and nothing more.
Yeah.
And you can walk away from that feeling a little bit better, like knowing at least the agreement was fulfilled.
Yeah.
With people and relationships, well, you have to be okay. And this is a hard one. Like, I need to do some soul searching here, because I have this thing where I just want everybody to like me, and I don't like when people don't like me. It drives me nuts. I hate it. Yeah, I don't like it.
Very likable though. Like, I don't know one person that doesn't like you.
And that's probably a bad thing. Somebody should not like you. Right? Somebody shouldn't like you.
I think there are people who are jealous of you, but I don't think that there are people who don't like you, that I've experienced, at least. Like, when, we've been around the same people or in the same space. I mean, I can just be an utter bitch. So, yeah, I think people don't like me. But I'm actually okay with that, to be honest, which is weird.
Right. Well, no, it should be okay with people not liking you. I think granted, it's not because you did something terribly wrong, right? Like, if I,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean? But I just don't like the fact that people may not like, so I think I guess what I'm getting at with this is, listen, if people are acting in a way that provides some violation to what I want out of life and my values, and kind of, then I need to be okay with them not being in my life, us not being friends, or, like that's
Sure.
and then, I don't know. Sounds easy and
Well, but it is.
and
It is
obvious, but it's like, I know I don't do it so well.
Well,
Anyway.
here's the thing. There's a great saying: "What other people think is none of my business. What other people think of me is none of my business." And I like going to that. And also, here's the other thing: like, there's so many people that I really don't like. So I would hope that that's reciprocated as well. Like, there are a lot of people I really do not want to spend time with or be in the same space as, because I just genuinely dislike them. I love all people, but people suck, And
Yeah, some people do. Yeah. I know, I agree with that.
them. It's more reflection on me.
Yeah. And I always had this hard time, because what I always try to do is, like, I don't find myself ever saying I just don't like. I mean, there are obviously people in your life that you will, but I find myself more often trying to figure out who they are, what they offer, and holding them accountable for that and nothing more. So if there's somebody, and there's a lot I don't like, but there are a few things I do like out of them, and they do a couple of these things well, then that's all I expect from them. I will not let myself get disappointed by ever expecting more. And it takes some time, but I've tried to do that with a lot of people, and it's backfired. Don't get me wrong, but it seems to work, and maybe that's why you say there aren't a bunch of people that don't like me. So I try to find a way to interact with anybody in some form or fashion based on what I feel like the level of expectation is from them. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does make
if
sense, but is that
if
you putting their needs before your own?
I don't know if
Or
it's being their needs, it's just like what can they offer in this specific environment? Like, is this something I'm working with them, or is this a gym kind of uh, friendship or relationship? Is it some type of friendship? It's what, yeah, I mean, essentially, like, what do they have to offer? What is the expectation from them? I mean, are they someone who you can have a drink with and have very surface level conversation with? Is it somebody you just work out with? Is it, there are all these different parts of your life that maybe they can add some value to you, and you can add some value to them, but I will only hold them accountable for that. I'm not going to expect anything more from these people. And maybe that's the wrong thing to do, but it helps me not be disappointed in somebody.
I like that. I'm completely the opposite. I think, and this is what I've kind of been doing for the last year. Like my circle of friends is really small. The people
Well, my
I
true
love
circle of friends is tiny.
life have to be pretty fucking spectacular. I have to tell you, I am not running around or interacting with anyone who doesn't feed me and I feed them in the highest and greatest way. I
Yeah.
made this decision like I think a year ago, and I have been ruthless with it.
No, I think
Ruthless.
that's good.
You know what I mean? Like you wrong me, fine. I'm not gonna hang out with you though. Like I'll forgive, but I'm done. Like I'm
Yeah.
not allowing people to trample in my space or do things to me like I used to because I was a bit of a doormat. And so maybe
Yeah.
in me finding the middle ground, like the one that you're describing, I have to go to this extreme, but I really am at the extreme right now.
I mean, that's okay. I mean, that's, I think you have to do what serves you to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think in terms of like close friends, I have very few.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that.
Oh God, totally. I mean, I love to be by myself so much that having too many friends is really difficult, especially if they don't all get along. You know what I mean? You like, love them in the same space. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I'm basically fighting for myself as I would for my child. That's how protective I have become of myself.
When you should, right? I think that's the idea, because once you can do that, well, then you are in a place where you can be accessible and help other people, but you have to fight for yourself first. Like I think that's a lot of maybe a misconception, is this idea that we need to consistently work on helping other people and kind of forget about ourselves, but it just doesn't work that way.
I think it's
If
the
you're not
opposite.
strong, yeah, if you're not strong enough to like truly take care of yourself, how are you going to help anybody else?
No, you can't.
But there's this social, like, socially, it makes you feel like you're being selfish, and people don't like the idea of being selfish, but you have to some extent
Yeah, I don't
to
care.
help to it's almost like you have to be selfish to be selfless. You know what I mean? Like you have to build yourself up. It's interesting. It's just like running a business, right? Like, let's take it into something we know, like CrossFit affiliates, right? The whole idea is getting people in there and really helping them live a better life. But you can't do it if you don't make money. If you don't figure out a way to make money and like have a good business plan so that you can keep those doors open, like you do have to think about the business to some extent. You have to run it like a business to some extent and really put some thought in it so that you can have those doors open enough to help the people that come in. And it's like,
Yeah.
if you're only focused, and I get it, like there is this idea of excellence and only focus on those people. But if your bathrooms aren't clean, you don't have the systems, you're not doing trainer development, like those are internal things, right? Those are internal things that you need to focus on within the business that will support helping other people. And it's like, that's what you have to do with yourself. If the only focus is on that person and not like kind of what's going on internally, well, then you might fail.
Oh, 100%. I can tell you though that I am feeling so strong right now. I mean, you know that I have been going through some really, really difficult times with family situation, and these are times that would have really thrown me and rattled me to my core and affected like every area of my life. And because I'm feeling so strong within myself, I've been able to deal with it so much better than I ever would have if I wasn't feeling this secure in myself. And so it's been a great thing.
I think that's the idea.
This drive for self-preservation, self-development, and growth.
That's the idea. And then so
this challenge because I've paid my debt. I'm spectacular. You figure out what stability and adventure means. I mean,
totally. It's definitely an eye-opening experience, and one that I'd like to continue in some form or fashion beyond 21 days, right? I mean, the easy thing to do is get through the 21 days and be like, all right, I did it. Life's changed, but it will go back. You gotta continue to work on and define these things and like look at your values and like kind of take your values, really define them, point a direction you want to go, and then continuously look and make sure that those match up, because as you change in life and grow in life, like your value set to some degree might change as well. So I think there needs to be this constant assessment of direction and values. And it starts with just naming what you value now, right? Like that's the start. And like, yeah.
And just reminding yourself of that constantly.
Yeah.
It's such a great baseline though for anything, any decision I have to make. Well, not how do I feel about it, but does this support my values and essentially, what drives me? No. Well, then no, I'm not doing it.
Well, it's what a good like CEO would do, right? Like what is the company's values, and like, all right, so are we making decisions for this business based off of that? Are we going against it? You just you're your own CEO. You gotta do that for yourself.
I love that.
The greater you. I'm talking to everybody, including myself, but yeah.
I love it. Aw, run yourself like
Yeah.
Start running ourselves like businesses.
For sure. An ethical business.
Not many of us about, but for sure.
Exactly.
I think let's end here, and then we will be back with another episode sometime soon. Bye.
Awesome.